This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from ConstructionLeadingEdge.com and ConstructionBusinessAccelerator.com. My name is Todd DeWalt. It's my job to help you, the construction business owner, eliminate chaos and maximize revenue. I'm talking about more time and more money. Got a great interview for you today with Jennifer Woods, and here's what you're going to get out of this. You're going to learn about the threat to you as a business owner if your employees are disengaged. There is a business case for employee recognition. What is it? You're going to learn about that. Also, when it comes to recognition, should you recognize behavior or results? We're going to talk about that. There's also a lot of wrong belief patterns that need to be dealt with in the area of employee recognition. You'll also learn, what does the term Safegagement mean and why you should care. And I'm telling you, you should care. Make sure and listen to this part when it comes to safety. Also, can you really motivate your employees? And what are some of the biggest mistakes that you could be making when you are trying to motivate your people? There are some very important things you need to understand when it comes to motivation if you are a leader or a business owner. This is a great interview with Jennifer. You're going to learn a lot. We're going to go down the rabbit hole on some stuff, but it is going to help you become a better leader and a better business owner. Before we get into that, I have a few resources I want to share with you. First of all, if you are a remodeling contractor and you understand the value of social media, you know that your customers are on social media, you know that your competitors are on social media, they're out there getting leads, and maybe you're not. Maybe you just don't have time, you don't know what the strategy is, you don't know what to do. Then I have good news for you. Spencer Powell, who was on episode 117 of the podcast, he is a social media and marketing expert. He has a done-for-you program that is an absolute no-brainer. So if you want to either get your social media strategy in order, or you want, maybe you have a good social media strategy, but you want to hand that off to somebody who can do it better than you, more consistently than you, so you can go do other stuff that you're better at, then go to ConstructionLeadingEdge.com/social. You'll get all the details about Spencer Powell's done-for-you social media program. I'm telling you, I did the math. This is an absolute no-brainer. And Spencer is also going to give you, the podcast listener, a special deal. You'll get a nice discount. Go to ConstructionLeadingEdge.com/social for all those details. Also, if you haven't watched my free video series, The Secrets of Successful Contractors, and you want to know, how did the big contractors grow consistently? Why don't they have cash flow issues? What are they doing that you aren't? Then you need to get this free video series to find out those answers. Plus, you're going to learn this revolutionary way of thinking that will help you drive revenue, deliver projects on time, grow your business, and basically accomplish whatever you want. So if you haven't gotten your hands on that free video series, The Secrets of Successful Contractors, go to ConstructionLeadingEdge.com/owner, OWNER. Sign up and I'll send you those videos. Really good stuff. Absolutely free. I want to get that into your hands. So go to ConstructionLeadingEdge.com/owner to get your free video series. Also, speaking of free stuff, go to ConstructionLeadingEdge.com/resources, and there you will find all sorts of free resources. You'll be able to get a free 10-day trial of the Construction Business Accelerator. It's an online training program that's basically like Netflix for construction business owners, and you will get instant online access to my Revenue Maximizer, Project Execution Formula, the Contractor Sales Accelerator, the Crew Productivity Booster, the Mindset Upgrade, and a whole bunch more stuff. You can also watch a webinar where you'll learn 6 ways to boost your revenue 27% next month without hiring more employees or finding more customers. There's also a webinar on how to build a healthy backlog of high-margin work. Who's not interested in that? You can also get your hands on 9 mistakes that are killing your sales, my number 1 tip for fixing your cash flow. There's a project scheduling course, 15 red flags. Here's one that everybody should watch. You should check out 15 red flags that a successful contractor may self-destruct. You need to go check that out if you haven't already done so and find out, are you or is your company showing the leading indicators that things are on the way down. So go check that out. You can get all of that stuff plus a bunch more book recommendations all at my resources page, constructionleadingedge.com/resources. And as always, you can just go to the website to find your way around there. Schedule a free call with me if you like, if you're a construction business owner. And that's where you want to go. Also, the notes to this podcast will be at constructionleadingedge.com/118 for episode 118. Speaking of which, let's get to that interview with Jennifer Woods right now. All right, Jennifer, thanks so much for being on the podcast. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you, Todd. It's a pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So let's just jump into it. Let's talk about the threat to business owners from disengaged employees.
Absolutely. And so it might be beneficial to talk about engagement, which is employee engagement has been widely thrown around these days, become very popular. However, I'm not sure if everyone has the same definition, which when we're talking about engagement, it's really that discretionary effort. So are they going to go above and beyond? Are they going to be sure that they're not just sleepwalking through their day? So with that established, there's a lot of threat to business owners. I want to say the number one threat is simply a lack of maintaining and retaining that talent. So right now, the labor market, if we look at, there's signs that payroll increases are reaccelerating, layoffs are remaining low, and people are quitting at a near high. So the substantial number of open positions in the economy and the lower number of available workers suggests that retaining the qualified labor is going to be a critical issue. And this is especially true when we're talking about the hands-on, not the C-suite or the executive or managerial roles, but the hands-on labor is much more challenging. Another threat, of course, is lack of innovation. Truly, the organizations that don't have those employees engaged aren't going to get the fresh ideas, aren't going to be able to be leading in their industry. And we know that if we're not moving forward, especially today, as a matter of fact, if we're not running forward, we're falling behind, is the truth of it. So to be able to create a culture and environment where the employees are able to have full use of their creativity and their unique skills is going to really be a game changer for organizations. Of course, the third and last one I'll speak to is just the pure loss of profit. Turnover is very expensive on average, and we're looking at an hourly employee, which is on the lower cost, is going to be about 30% of 1 year's salary. So no one wants to do that, and that's not including the loss of morale and productivity. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation prior where you have people that are leaving left and right, and there's this bit of uncertainty and what am I going to do here? And of course, the focus, they're not all in, if you will. And so those are, of course, the safety is huge. And I know a lot of your listeners are in the construction industry, and the statistics show, if we look at Gallup, you can have a 70% reduction in incidents when there is a greater level of safety awareness, which means, of course, that you have engaged employees. That's how that happens. And those costs for incidents are over $1 billion in America every week.
Every week?
Every week. And what's crazy is that this could be mitigated. And there's interesting studies about near misses for one thing that we do is we help organizations reward their employees, and we help them praise them and acknowledge when they do report the near misses, because the reality is that can be saving them a lot of money by having that awareness.
Definitely. And I would even say that, well, I've done a lot of research on this. I've given a few talks on this in recent months. One of the biggest issues, if not the biggest issue in the construction industry right now, is the skilled labor shortage. Mm-hmm. And when I dug into it, I found that the construction industry has a 60% separation rate. Therefore, 6 out of 10 construction workers are changing companies every year. So getting laid off, getting fired, leaving voluntarily. And that number is increasing. It's much higher than the national average, and it's getting worse, which doesn't make sense, because if the skilled labor shortage is getting worse, people are becoming more scarce. It would seem like people would stay around, but that tells me there's a deeper problem. And it's not just a lack of people, but there are a lot of root causes that need to be addressed. And I think a big part of it is leadership. The things we're going to talk about today will help mitigate the skilled labor shortage, reduce retention, help to build great teams and keep great people. And to your point, I have been in a situation where I've been on a team and people start to leave. Let's say you're on a team of 10 people and 2 people leave. Well, it sort of makes you wonder, is everybody jumping ship? Is there something I don't know? And then those people don't get replaced immediately. Therefore, that workload is still there. You have fewer people doing more work, and it just gets worse and worse. And it almost becomes this balance that tips. Once it hits a tipping point, then you're done. And I think a lot of what we can do to solve this revolves around very simple, no cost, low cost programs like recognition. So what's the business case for employee recognition? Why should business owners care? For the people who are saying, this is fluffy stuff, people should just want to get a paycheck. What's the business case for this?
No, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. And good point. That is still out there, surprisingly. That is still out there. So money always talks, and statistics can be compelling. And I'm not sure if your listeners are familiar, but there is an employee engagement index. And it consists of 45 different companies that have been measured to have high engagement when it comes to their customers, employees, and their community. For the past, since 2012, they have outperformed the S&P 500 by 36.2%. So that's astounding. Yeah, so it's really true. And what we find is that, and again, back to some Gallup studies, is there's going to be, when you have a quote unquote engaged employee, you're going to get at least 100% return on your investment if you are an employer. If you have your disengaged, which is the normal, so think about that, 33%, only 33% of the workers are maybe happy going to work, so certainly not like Jeff Bezos tap dancing on his way to work like we talked about. Something's wrong here, right? Life is short, so we have to keep that in mind. But the disengaged, at a maximum, you're at a 70% return, because they are just sleepwalking through the day. And so if you think of, for easy math, because it's still morning, you think, okay, $100,000, you're paying someone, you're maybe going to get $70,000 worth of return on their productivity. But on the worst side, that's a $30,000 loss every single year.
Yeah, so that's a good business case. So let's talk about what is an engaged, well, let's start with a disengaged employee. In your opinion, what are the characteristics of a disengaged employee? And then what are the characteristics of somebody who's engaged in their job?
Sure, and there's different levels of disengagement. And when you have one that is highly disengaged, they're like poison, Todd, and there's really nothing to do other than to recognize that, identify them, and move them out. So we want retention, but we want the right kind of retention, most definitely. So they are ones that are actually poison to the company. They're talking bad. They have sometimes even plans to bring the company down. I actually was a part of that one time. It was amazing. One person, this company was about 70 people. It's not a very large company, but he literally brought the entire organization down. So that's your highly disengaged. So again, on the large majority of the people today waking up Monday mornings and not being happy about it, is they are just showing up. So they're there, but they're not giving it their all. They're not fully into what they're doing. And matter of fact, a lot of them are looking to go somewhere else. And the key that we found, like you said, it's not rocket science. It's a little bit of psychology and humanity, is people today are looking for the desire to be, or they're looking to be recognized. They're looking to have purpose in their work and truly make a difference.
So there's the actively disengaged who are sabotaging the success of the company, actively, in the construction context, actively causing problems, maybe actively damaging tools and equipment, sticking it to the man. And then there's the passive or neutral people who are they're just phoning it in. And I did some research on this a few years ago, and it's fairly intuitive to think, well, people who are disengaged, they're going to miss more work than the engaged person. So absenteeism is a big problem. They're going to max out their vacation days, take lots of sick days, not going to be productive while they're there. A bigger problem can be presenteeism. This is the person who is actively disengaged, but they're not going to stay home. They're going to come to work. They're going to gossip and blame and cause strife and destruction wherever they go, because what better way to stick it to the man than collect a paycheck, come to work, cause problems, and try to run the ship into the ground. Yeah, it's a bigger problem than most people think. So before we get into how to solve it, what are some of the root causes of disengagement and these issues? Because I've learned you can't really treat the symptoms and expect much to happen.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get to the root cause. So in your opinion and your experience, what are the root causes?
Sure. And that's another great question. And we have to remember to look at people as people and not just focus purely on their productivity. If you think about Zig Ziglar, you can get everything you want in life if you just help enough other people get what they want. Now, if we talk about philosopher Dewey saying that the biggest desire in humanity is the desire to be important. And I think that the leadership and management can so often get caught up in the pressure of whether it's the shareholders and pressure of productivity and just looking at what they need to get done versus taking time to step back, come a little bit higher, and realize the humanity involved in their organization, which is the most powerful thing when it is focused on in that manner versus just looking at it as these are people there to do a job. The first thing is they're people. And when people know that people care about them, that's when they begin to care and really give it your all. And to take this outside of a work environment, for example, I'm sure a lot of your listeners probably have children or people that they care about. And you know, when you give someone a gift and you know they really appreciate that gift and they show you, they think, you know, sometimes they can even be teary about it. You're going to want to continue to make sure that next year they get another birthday present or whatever that may be. And we have also probably all had experiences where we give someone a gift and they're like, oh, thanks. You know, they didn't care at all. It's like, I don't know if I'm going to send them the money this year, whatever it might be. And so we're no different. We're all grown up kids when it comes to the workplace. And it's essentially, it's just a family. It's a work family. And so in order for everyone to thrive and be productive, we have to acknowledge what it is that they desire. And it has to start at the leadership level.
Yeah, I think so many times, especially in construction, people are looked at as workers are a means to an end. They are, and I've heard this said, I've heard people say, listen, I don't pay you. I pay you for what you have from your shoulders down. So I don't pay you to think, just do what I say. And as you can imagine, that doesn't really foster the kind of engagement that we're talking about. And I have, in my opinion, the stuff we're talking about, engagement and tapping into the hearts and minds of your people, this is not just fluffy stuff. It's like, yeah, well, maybe I should do this to make people feel better. Look, in my opinion, this is going to be table stakes going forward. there are companies who are doing this right now, and they're winning the war for talent. And the companies who don't do this and they continue to operate the way they did 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, they're going to be disrupted by this skilled labor shortage, and they will lose people. Their good people will leave them and go work somewhere else where they're not just treated as a number. And the analogy that I use is the Simon Sinek golden circle. Start with why TED Talk. He talks about how every business knows what they do. That's the outer. There's these 3 concentric circles. And if you're listening and you haven't watched this, go check out the Golden Circle TED Talk from Simon Sinek. Great stuff. But the outer circle is what? And he says every company knows what they do. In our context, we build buildings, we install HVAC systems, whatever. We know what we do. Most companies know how they do it. Very few companies know why they do it. And for most companies, people are in the how. And in order to succeed in these next few decades, I believe people have to move into the why.
Absolutely.
And I would say that a great approach, a different way of thinking about business is this. I ask this question: what if construction companies are just people development companies masquerading as construction companies?
Well, and that's what it is. That's absolutely what it is. And it's understanding, it's telling people why, when in some cases, management or leadership may say they don't need to know why. Well, they do need to know why, because they need to have purpose in their work. And you may have heard this story before. I'll share a quick story with you. There's a gentleman, and he was taking a walk, and he noticed 2 bricklayers. They're about 100 feet apart. And he walked up to the first bricklayer, and he asked the man, he said, "Do you mind if I ask what you're doing?" And the man said, "Yeah, I'm making $20 an hour." Thought, okay. And he walked a little further to the next bricklayer, and he asked him the same question. He said, "Do you mind if I ask what you're doing?" This bricklayer stopped, and he looked at the man with his big smile and his bright eyes, and he said to him, "With each and every brick that I'm laying, I am constructing a great cathedral. And someday, people from all around the world will come to admire it." So he knew why. You can only imagine the different work ethics that were happening 100 feet apart to construct that cathedral. The one man with zest and gusto to do it because he understood. But what leadership has to remember is that very often the workers aren't always going to connect that why. They have to connect it for them. In construction, what's fabulous is they actually are making something tangible. When you're talking service industries, and sometimes things aren't seen, but if they can understand that they are building, let's say, a house for a family to build memories in, that's going to keep them sheltered from the storms and so on, and that can drive them and help their purpose. That I'm just not showing up today to follow some orders. I'm working in harmony to actually create something beautiful and significant, because that's why we're all here, right? We're all here to help one another to one degree or another, and
Absolutely.
That's what drives us.
We all want to be part of something bigger than ourselves. We want to do something meaningful, and I have done work ranging from kitchen remodels, sewer rehabilitation, doing office buildings, remodels, flipping cubicle farms. And if you dig deep enough, you can find a why. It could be a huge why. It could be, hey, we're doing sewer rehabilitation to keep the waterways clean for our children. That's a great why.
That is.
I had to dig a little deeper when I was doing cubicle farm remodels for corporate clients, but I could say I'm going to help create a great work environment where Katrina Salmons, an admin at Procter & Gamble, can go sit and she can enjoy her day. And she can have a great workstation. She's going to be productive. She's going to have natural light. It's going to make her life better. This place where she spends 8, 10, 12 hours a day.
Yes.
And when we can do that, when we can connect what we're doing to the why, then I think this solves a lot of the things we're talking about here. But that's it, for most people, it's completely off their radar. But this is leadership's job. This is leadership's job to cast that vision and say, guys, this is why this is important. This is what we're doing. This is where what you're doing fits into the big picture. And I believe that when you do that, I believe that's at the root cause of a lot of our problems. I call it we have a why deficiency. We are deficient. There's a deficiency in Y, not a vitamin Y. I don't know that exists, but WHY deficiency in our work. And if we can do that, then people will be more engaged, more inspired to do, and it will improve productivity, it will improve quality, it will improve
ability.
all sorts of things. It just solves so many problems when we start treating people, as you said, like people, and then connect what they're doing to the people who are going to get some benefit out of the work they're doing. So, absolutely. So let's talk about some of the wrong belief patterns that need to be dealt with when we're talking about engagement and recognition. What are some of the not so helpful or just completely wrong beliefs in that area?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I actually want to go backwards just a little bit to move forward, if you will.
Sure.
Because when you're talking about different mindsets, and one thing that we have to keep in mind is that we're at a time when we're dealing with different mindsets from different generations, often 3 or 4 within one organization. And so, of course, we have our more traditional, more mature. We have the baby boomers, the Gen X, the millennials. The millennials, of course, are getting a lot of airspace right now in terms of, hey, by 2020, which is not far away, they're going to be half of the workplace. Half of our workforce are going to be millennials. So we better find out what we can celebrate about them, because they actually are incredibly valuable. But one thing that has shifted is the mindset. We have to remember that the traditionalists, not that they're going back from the agrarian age where the satisfaction, it wasn't even satisfaction, the goal of the employee was survival, right? So we've gone quite a ways from we want to survive, and then with the Industrial Revolution, we want to get satisfaction out of our work, and then now we have this, I want to have engaged in my work, and now we've evolved literally to this place where we need to have purpose, just like you said. However, still in this workplace with all these different generations, we're finding that we still have some old mindsets that haven't caught up. So that's where I laughed when you said, hey, you should just be happy for a paycheck, right? You're working here. And the truth is, we know, if we read any Psychology 101, is that yes, people will work for money, but they'll go the extra mile for rewards and appreciation, truly recognition and appreciation. And that's where it's at. And that's one of the mindsets that we are still dealing with, is when you have the leaders that will say, look, I pay them to show up. Well, guess what? You're not going to have to pay them to show up much longer. Okay? Yeah, so wrong mindset, it would be that people are motivated by money.
And strictly by money, that money is the only thing that matters. Yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we find that it's not that motivating at all. It's funny, if you go ahead and you do a survey, if you were to have, say, 1,000 employees, and you cast a survey and said, how would you like to be rewarded? 9 out of 10 times, they're going to say more money. But the reality is that studies show is that does not motivate them, is that rather when they get a meaningful gift, that is going to keep their tenure, that's going to bring more productivity, it's going to increase the chances, the likelihood of whatever behavior they did to be repeated. Whereas the money, here's a great warning. Okay, leaders, totally listen to this. If you're looking at recognition, the problem when you start out recognizing with money, and this doesn't negate that people have to have their needs met, okay, where the survival is taken care of. On Maslow's hierarchy, check, that's done. Mm-hmm. But when you get into going over and beyond, and you give them money for that, it ends up becoming an entitlement. So you can see a initial spike in terms of productivity. There's this new program, and people get excited about it. About a year and a half time, you'll see a decline. It becomes stale. And now the worst thing is, okay, we've just elevated everybody's income. Now how are we going to deal with this? Now how are we going to tie in the extrinsic motivation to get those desired behaviors we want? So just a little forewarning. If you're there, there's a way to get out of it, but it's not as easy as when you're starting out to start without going the total monetary cash or gift cards even. Not the best tool.
And I've seen some research, it may be by Daniel Pink, that financial rewards actually have the opposite effect, that they actually do not increase productivity. They do not increase, they have a negative effect. So there's a little bit of a seed of destruction baked into any sort of financial incentive program that you need to be aware of. And based on my research, there are several things that are above money when it comes to what motivates people. And it's intrinsic motivation. This I know came from Dan Pink, is that intrinsic motivators are so much more powerful than extrinsic motivators. So recognition, appreciation, trust, autonomy, those things are so powerful. And I found that when you do those things, then you don't need, people don't even ask for, they don't ask about incentives. And this is something I hear from people. I talk about productivity. How do we get to productivity? How do we set targets? How do we show the team what winning looks like? And a lot of people ask me, well, what happens? What if people ask me for a bonus? Or what if people ask me for more money when they do this? And I'll say, they probably won't. Because if you tell them what winning looks like, and then you tell them you did it, you won, good job, attaboy, attagirl, that is more motivating than anything that you could put on their paycheck. So wrong beliefs, back to that. There's the belief pattern that people only care about money, that money is the number one motivator. I think there's also a belief pattern that I have to motivate people, that somehow I can and I have to motivate somebody. And research says that I can't really motivate anybody. I can help people find their motivation. But the only motivation that really exists is internal motivation. Otherwise, it becomes the stick or the carrot, and those external motivators, they just don't work that well. Any other wrong beliefs that need to be dispelled when it comes to this sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to address what you just said as well. So because employee engagement is a big phrase that's being thrown around and companies are aware, there's also this thought, leadership might say, let's check this box. Let's just check this, done. And they'll put a program in. The problem with that is that can turn against you. A program has to be well thought out. And there has to be training on not a lot of training because it's not rocket science, but the managers and supervisors to be aware of the impact of recognition. They need to understand how to do it. For instance, so you have an organization of 1 million people. You don't have to deeply know and intrinsically know those 1 million people, but you can know your direct reports. Maybe that's 8 or 10. And so what's really important is for the managers to understand first, and this is always overlooked, Todd, always, is the leadership to step back and take their inventory about knowing themselves.
So true.
So true, because they're always thinking about how they're supposed to get things done, how they're supposed to quote unquote manage others, which we should just take. Can we just take management out of the dictionary? I mean, who really wants to be managed, right? We want to be led. We want to be guided. We're adults, okay? And so they need to really know what it is that motivates you. So you said that there's the extrinsic. Well, listen, we're going to use it all, honey. We're going to take it. We're going to take the extrinsic. We're going to take the intrinsic, and we are going to make it happen. Why? Because when you're starting your workout program, you're not going to make it alone off intrinsic motivation, okay? Unless you're a very, very percentage. You have to set up your environment for success. All right, so that means your tennis shoes are by your bed the night before, your workout clothes, whatever it is. Your gym is no more than 10 minutes away from you. You don't have donuts and cookies in the house. Boom, done. So get that set up for success. And we need to do that for our employees too, especially when you have someone new coming on board. make sure that you are equipping them with how to succeed. Get them underneath someone who has done that role that can mentor them, so you're setting them up for success, right? So to be aware first for the leaders of what they're good at, what they're not great at, make sure that they fill that gap, that they delegate that they put a system in place to take care of that. And then to understand truly what it is that the employees desire. So Todd, for instance, you might get excited about a trip. That might excite you, right? Or your friend Jim, your peer, he might be excited about building a church in Afghanistan. I don't know, whatever it might be. That would be a tough one. But so we all have different things that motivate us. And so if the directs don't really understand it and take time to get to know their direct reports, how are they going to help motivate them? Some people like to be recognized publicly, some privately. So let's learn that. Let's really know what's going to drive them. And then, like you said, it's not I'm going to motivate that individual. We all have a certain amount of motivation, but we need to recognize what they do well, and that will innately drive their own motivation, because now you've attaboyed them. I don't know, have you seen that video? It's been, hopefully a lot of your listeners have seen on LinkedIn. It has baby Charlie and he's building blocks.
It sounds familiar, but yeah. I'm not sure.
It went viral. It was by Oleg, and he has, 1 billion followers or something. Yeah. So there's this little baby. He has to be maybe, I don't know, a year and a half old or something like that, not even. And he's building these blocks. And all the grandparents are around and parents are around. And he gets to his second or third block or something. And there's this magical moment when all of a sudden, yay, good job, Charlie. You hear him in the background. Oh my gosh, that baby goes crazy. He starts screaming, and then he starts running over and finding another block. And so it's amazing to understand that years ago, Maslow had it right. If I could pop something up on a screen, it would be that pyramid. And you have survival, and you have all the different steps. But then when you get safety, when you get to love and belonging and esteem, and then self-actualization, love, belonging, and esteem are all within the area of recognition. And so until our employees are recognized, they literally cannot go to self-actualization or to their next level. So how silly for management to miss that and simply not recognize what they're really good at and then just watch them take off.
Interesting.
It's powerful.
Yeah. Is the ability to figure out, we'll call it emotional intelligence. Is this a skill that can be learned? Self-awareness, emotional intelligence. Are these skills that can be learned, or are they things that people are either born with or not?
Oh, it's a skill. Absolutely a skill. And a matter of fact, there's some resources too. There's a recognition languages book that's pretty good and understanding that. But truly just having a conversation. The number one thing people like to talk about is what?
Other people, in my experience, complaining. Yeah.
Okay.
Themselves. The answer, I think the right answer is that I like to talk about me, the old Toby Keith song. I want to talk about me. Yeah.
Exactly. So when a manager has a one-on-one with their team member, they will open up more than not if it's in a comfortable environment and they understand that they care. They want to do better.
Yeah. So what happens, this will go down the rabbit hole a little bit. We won't go too far, but what happens in our brain when somebody recognizes us and talks about me? When somebody talks about me and they recognize me and they give me an attaboy, is there something that happens in my brain that is more than just words?
Oh, absolutely. It's an emotional response. So first there's this awareness. When someone praises you or someone even says your name, Todd, boom, all of a sudden now you're more engaged and you're paying more attention because you understand that you are the focus. And then what happens when that awareness, so now we're having we could talk some Tony Robbins thing here.
Sure, let's go
Right?
there.
Yeah. So when we're having that heightened awareness, it becomes bigger. And as we know, when a thought becomes bigger, then it becomes more intense. And with that intensity, there's an associated emotion. So now what's happening in context? Is this a positive thing or is it a negative thing? And that's the link. So truly, when we talk about giving meaningful gifts or meaningful recognition, it's linking that emotion and that meaning to their work and to that workplace and to that manager. It's building those neural pathways of positive thoughts that link that. I think I might have mentioned, I have a friend who's an executive recruiter, and he had a position for an executive he was trying to pull him into, and it would have raised his salary. It was about, I think, a $50,000 increase in his salary. And he thought about it. It was difficult at first, but he ended up turning him down. And he said, I can't leave my work family. Mm. So, yeah. So employers can have that emotional connection. And and I hate to say this, but because we are so busy, the only way to successfully do it is to systematically do it. So there has to be a recognition and appreciation system and process and methodology in place to have that done successfully. But then there has to be the recognition from leadership to know that it's the heart that's behind it. And it truly is the people that are producing the results, but it stems from them.
Yeah, I think it requires a shift in culture where the people at the front line, but the leadership approach is one of servant leadership, whereby the leader is supporting and serving the people that report to them instead of standing on the heads and shoulders of their people. So when you think about your job as a leader as that, it's my job to support these people, make them win, then that changes everything. I think it's very difficult. What we're talking about with recognition and engagement is at odds with the old command and control, you work for me, you support me kind of approach. But one thing that I've found when it comes to recognition is, as you said, when someone is recognized, it has an effect on the brain. It builds those neural pathways. There are feel-good chemicals released, oxytocin, dopamine, these things that feel really good. And if we want people to repeat behaviors, then let's connect them to something that feel really good. So on the receiving end, there's this connection between good behavior and feels really good. And then what's not so apparent is on the delivering end, the person who is delivering the recognition, saying thank you, being selfless, being generous, they get a very similar response. They have a very similar experience in their brain, which creates this feedback loop, this sort of, so everybody's spiraling upward.
That's right. Feeling
good, recognizing, working harder on both sides of the equation. And it just results in a lot of good things. So,
that's an interesting point that you say, and it's actually true that the giver is going to have a compounded effect of that positivity, if you will. And it ends up, you'll find out sometimes when we go and put programs into place that you'll have some naysayers and some of the managers who aren't so much believers, if you will, in the program. And then as it begins to get launched and implemented, they become the biggest cheerleaders because now they are seeing not only the effects of their team, but they're happier going to work as well.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this and you're a little frustrated with your people and you want to get this feedback loop going, then focus on some gratitude and go find some people doing something right. Instead of looking for just the negative, make it a point to find somebody doing something right every day. And you'll be amazed at how those people change. They're not really changing, but you're just, instead of only seeing the negative, you'll see the positive. You mentioned Zig Ziglar, and he tells a great story about a lady that walked up to him after a conference once, and all she did was complain about these people I work with and blah, 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 blah. And it was all negative. Mm-hmm. And he started talking to her and asked her questions like, well, do they pay you there? Well, yeah, I guess they do. Is it above average? Yeah, actually, they pay me pretty well. Do you get a vacation? Actually, I get a really good vacation. Do they take good care of you? Yeah, they do. And then he sort of walked her through this, made her look at things through a different lens. And then he said a few weeks later, she came up to him at a different conference, and she said, "Mr. Ziegler, you're not going to believe how those people have changed."
Yeah, yes, I've heard that story.
And they haven't changed at all, but
Right.
the lens that she was looking at them through definitely changed. So let's talk about safety. You
Sure.
mentioned a term that you called Safegagement.
Hmm.
We talked about safety a little bit, but what is that? What does that mean?
Safegagement. So Safegagement is a methodology, and we put it in place. And what happens is when engaged employees are safer at work, they make better decisions. And it's because they care about those they work with, they care about the company they work with, and they care about the achievements of that organization. So that is, there's 5 steps, and if you like, or 5 pieces in that, I could take you through it. It's very powerful. And then your listeners would like a summary of Safegagement. The principles, they really work, and I'd be happy to send that to them.
Absolutely. If you could walk through that briefly, and then if you could share how people could find out more about it at the end, that would be great.
Absolutely. So 5 pieces, and the first is leading indicators. That's the first piece. And in safety, we want to focus on what you just said, focus on the positive, focus on the leading indicators versus the lagging indicators. So let's think proactive versus reactive. To keep this fresh and easy in your mind, think lead, don't lag. And so, of course, we're looking at how can we prevent these incidents versus what's happened afterwards. And what you find is that it literally has a tremendous impact in actually reducing the incidents. So that's step 1. Remind me to address it different ways to motivate at the end, because that's pretty important in terms of being in compliance with OSHA. I just want to make note that when you are rewarding for leading versus lagging, you're mainly going to be in compliance with OSHA. Where back it was in 2012, I believe it was, for OSHA, there was a statement saying that they didn't want organizations to have employees not want to report. And so if they were going to get incentivized, and if they reported and that would take away that incentive, there's that chance of non-reporting, which is pretty serious for the organization. And then they might have to go under scrutiny of OSHA, and we never want that. So one of the rules is to not reward for 1,000 man hours of no incidents, because let's say that, Todd, you have a laceration, and there's a raffle for a Toyota 4Runner out front, and at the end of the quarter, if your whole team goes, you're not going to want to forsake that, and you're not going to want to go to work the next day and be the one that spoiled the party. So that's some caution there. So lead, don't lag. And then the second piece of that is comprehensive training. And we could just say comprehensive communication to take it a little bit broader, but comprehensive training is your organization's dedication for the entire organization to understand the training programs and be committed to that. One thing to remember is that because we do have these different generations, is that there's going to be different styles and different manners that we need to communicate this training to. For instance, the millennials, they were basically born with an iPhone, right? And that changes the way that their brains operate and that they learn. And so when you're offering training, make sure that you have different formats to appeal to the different learning styles, and just make sure that it is also reinforced. It's not an annual thing. Mother is a repetition, or repetition is the mother of learning, rather. And so that's another thing to just think about when you're doing your training. The third piece is positive reinforcement. So when we are praising and appreciating and rewarding a behavior, it has been, of course, proven that the likelihood of that behavior will be repeated. It's very powerful. Actually, I'll give a quick story. Do I have time for a quick story on this one? Positive reinforcement. So We have we have a lot of clients, so about 3,000 of them, but one is in a warehouse environment, and this is when they're a brand new client, and he was struggling with forklift drivers, which is a common issues with forklift drivers for some reason. And this particular day, he was on the observation deck, and he was in a blind spot. He spent about 20, 30 minutes observing the forklift drivers, and they weren't beeping when they turn the corner, which for obvious reasons is not a good idea. So at the end of the day, he had an option. He could have done the traditional, come on guys, you know what you need to do, you're not doing it, here's the processes, come on. And of course everyone feels demotivated after one of those. They don't necessarily want to go to work the next day. So instead what he did is, and this is one of the mechanisms that we use for rewarding, it's been very powerful in the construction industry as well, is he offered them in front of their peers the 4 that did beat an instant award card. So it's the way he did it. He let them know what they're doing is keeping people safe, and that's just tremendous, because it literally is true. It can be life or death in these situations. And of course, there is something meaningful for them on the other side of the card. But so that's a good example. And about 6 weeks goes by, he did the same observation. And this time it was 14 out of 15 that beeped when they went around the corner. And it was wonderful about positive reinforcement. So you get to focus on the positive. He got to keep a positive environment and tone, yet the point got across. And not only that, it was effective. The 4th piece is parallel engagement. Parallel engagement is when everybody, top to bottom, is following the process and the procedures and the safety program, if you will. So this is especially important with leadership. So we had another client and on site with the safety leader, and he looked disturbed. Knowingly disturbed. So he said, is everything okay? He said, no, follow me. So we went to the safety gear closet. He got some safety gear, went across the deck to, it was a vice president of sales there with some prospects. And they didn't have all their PPE on. So he handed them their PPE, and he's like, oh, hey, I'm sorry, I forgot, the VP's sales. And he's like, no. As we walked away, he said, we cannot let our team see that leadership isn't committed, because that's going to send the wrong message, and they're not going to take it seriously. And so parallel engagement is crucial. And then the 5th and the last one is connectivity and ownership. And we talked about humanity and just we're people at work. And the truth is that some of the best ideas and suggestions come from the people who are doing it. They're in it day in and day out. And so this part is allowing them to take ownership by listening to them, listening to their ideas, sharing their ideas. If they have an idea that's valuable, oh, here's a construction one actually. And so your audience may appreciate this. We had a construction company that was having a large amount of back strains, which of course really slows the project down. They're off, and then there's workers' compensation, all that. And it was one of their workers that came and approached the supervisor and said, I think I know why we're having so many back injuries. And he said, well, why is that? And he said, I think it's simply because most of our team, or not most, I should say, but a lot of our team needs to have a fit for work test. It was kind of it's like, I don't know how we're going to do this very well, but they did it. It was the right thing. And their injuries went down about 46%. It was incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. I love that. Reward leading indicators. Don't reward things after the fact, but find the behaviors that are good leading indicators of success. Reward those things. Comprehensive training, positive reinforcement. This is going to be tough for people because it seems like all we want to do is negative reinforcement. And I don't think that even works. Maybe negative reinforcement works some. I'm not sure if that's true. Positive reinforcement works. It may not be the only type of reinforcement that works, but it certainly works 10 times as well as negative reinforcement. Parallel engagement, make sure everybody from top to bottom is drinking the Kool-Aid, doing the same thing, and get people to take ownership in it, get them involved. in the process. When people are part of the process, part of the planning, they're going to be much more likely to implement that plan, as opposed to, here's another safety initiative from the eggheads up in the office. So great stuff. Well, I know we're running up against time, and this has been tremendous. I appreciate everything you've shared. Talk a little bit about what you do for how you can help construction companies, and then where people can, what resources do you have available? Where can people connect with you if they want to do so after listening to this?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking, Todd. And so my particular role is to, let's say it this way, you know those companies that care about their employees?
Yeah, a few.
Yeah. Okay. My role is to align with those organizations that understand it is the people that are building their company, and they do want to raise that level of employee engagement in their organization. And we, of course, do that through appreciation and recognition. And so that's my role. And so what we do normally is we find that the few, maybe it's 1, 2, top 3 key initiatives where we can actually make some measurable differences in. And it can be hard and soft, which is wonderful. When I say hard, it might be workers' comp, it might be reduction in incidents. When I say soft, it might be we want to do an employee pulse survey. Are people really happy here? Right? There's too many heart attacks Monday morning between 8 and 9 a.m. Okay.
That's the best. Right?
We have that. And so then it is to understanding those needs and understanding their culture is to put in that system, to put in that recognition program, essentially to equip their leaders to be better, so we can see the manifestation of more effort and more engagement, because the employees know that they're cared about, they know that they're making a difference, they know that they have purpose, and it's a really fun space to be in, because we literally get to watch the culture, the energy in the organization shift. We're one from, like you said, there's still that punitive mindset out there, which, hey, we know as parents it doesn't work very well. It's a short-term fix, right? And then they're going to go somewhere else. And so to have a more positive focus, use the law of attraction, use everything that we have, because life is short. We need to make a difference, but we need to have fun doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what's the name of your company? How can people find out about you? How can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So the company is CA Short, as in Charlie Apple Short, not tall. And they can simply email me. My email is easy. It's jwoods with an S. So jwoods@cashort.com. In terms of resources, we have so many resources, Todd, that we had to skinny down our website a bit. So tremendous. We've been in business for 82 years. So we have best practices and methodologies, a lot of great information I'm happy to share. As mentioned, I think with your audience, a Safegagement methodology summary might be nice, as well as I could offer a checklist when it comes to a safety program, some things I want to be sure that they include in there, and some things to avoid as well.
I'll tell you what, if you can send me those documents, I'll put links to those in the show notes. That way people can go there, and I'll have a link to that blog post at the end of the podcast. And I'll also have a link to your website, have your email address there as well. So if you're driving right now listening to this podcast, don't worry, just wait till the end. I'll have a link where you can go and get all of these things we talked about, and you can get in touch with Jennifer as well. So thank you so much. This has been a great conversation. Lots of other stuff I'm sure we could get into, mindsets. We could go down that rabbit hole, but perhaps we'll save that for a round 2 sometime in the future.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Todd. I've enjoyed it.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Jennifer. There you go. Put this stuff into action. Go to constructionleadingedge.com/118 to check out the links, get in touch with Jennifer, and don't just listen to this stuff. Put this into practice wherever you're at, whether you're a construction business owner or you are a foreman, whatever you're doing, put these principles into play, become a better leader, and you're going to have a positive impact on the people around you. It's also going to have a positive impact on your career and on your business. So a few of the resources I want to get in your hands. If you're a remodeling contractor and you want to up your social media game, then you really need to take care of this no-brainer done for you service from my buddy Spencer Powell with his done for you social media package. You can find out all the details at constructionleadingedge.com/social. Get your hands on the free video series, The Secrets of Successful Contractors, over at constructionleadingedge.com/owner. Lots and lots of resources, free webinars, free training, book recommendations over at constructionleadingedge.com/resources. And I want to read an iTunes review that came in from Austin. And if you appreciate the podcast, if you could take a few minutes and leave a review, leave a rating on iTunes, I would appreciate it. It's also going to help get it out to the rest of the world. Here's what Austin said. Part of his review said, "My favorite part personally is personal development. In my generation, it's not common for people to take charge and set themselves apart. The ability to vibe with Todd on that level is a huge plus, and it's the reason why I suggest to anyone in the construction industry, get on board, use the tactics laid out by Todd, and hang on for the ride." I like that. So I appreciate that, Austin. So yeah, if you can leave a rating or a review, share this podcast with somebody who needs to see it, that would be fantastic. By the way, all of these podcasts are now available on YouTube. So just search for Construction Leading Edge TV on YouTube, and you should be able to find it there. So thanks for listening. I appreciate the emails, the ratings, the reviews, and all your support. Oh, and one more thing. If you are a construction information expert, maybe you're into Procore, Co-Construct, you're a project management expert, you can do estimating, and you want to turn your free time plus your expertise into a side hustle, and you want to help other contractors in the process, then go set up your free freelancer profile at buildwithout.com. And if you are a construction business owner or leader and you're in a crunch, you need somebody to run your projects inside Co-Construct. You need somebody to manage your projects inside Procore. You need somebody to do bookkeeping for you and you want to outsource that. Maybe you need somebody to do estimates for you on a freelance or contract basis. Maybe you think you need to hire somebody for that full time. Well, the good news is you don't need to hire an employee necessarily. Go to buildwithout.com and you'll be able to get access to construction information experts from all over the country, and they can help you with your needs. So go check that out. Watch some videos on buildwithout.com, and you can build your business without all the headaches of hiring employees. I'm Todd DeWalt. Thanks so much for listening. Let me know how I can help you. Visit me at constructionleadingedge.com, and I'll see you next time.